ISO FileMaker Magazine, the professional's resource for FileMaker know-how. Hey there, Matt Petrowski here, ISO FileMaker Magazine. You can always find me at FileMakerMagazine.com. Are you ready to learn more about FileMaker? I'm going to take you through what I know about find mode, the operators, and anything to do with searching your FileMaker data. Let's take a look at the file and head over to my desktop. All right, thanks for joining me here on my desktop, and we are going to be taking a look at a file that I am using to evolve over the course of multiple videos. You'll find them on YouTube. You can check the description if you're on YouTube below and get a link to the full series if you want to go all the way back to video number 1 and watch them in sequence. Otherwise, what we have in this video is learning FileMaker's find mode and operators. Now, the number one thing that you typically are doing in a database system after the data is already in that database system is looking for things. You want to find subsets of data. Now, in the rest of the database world, but a lot of people use a language called SQL in order to make a query across multiple tables that hold data in different collections, and it's connected together through what are known as primary keys and foreign keys, if you're not familiar with those, but it's structured data. They call it normalized, but there's other systems that we have, one of which FileMaker is going to be using, which is a little bit less structured. It's actually called a document database, where things are stored as JSON, and MongoDB is a very popular one, CouchDB is another. But in FileMaker, we are doing what's known as a query by form. So here on screen, I have a database, and this database has data. Now, you're always going to want to be able to find that data specific to whatever your search criteria is. But the way that FileMaker works is it has this thing called Quick Find, which is sort of like this Google-like Uber find. And we can see that up here, up in the top, where we've got this little search bar. Now, if your copy of FileMaker doesn't look the same, you can always right-click on the actual bar, and I believe this works on both Mac and Windows. And you can choose to customize this. I don't think that I have, but yeah, I probably got the default here. I mean, even if I had drugged some items up here and rearranged this and maybe put the search over here right in the middle because I like it in the middle, even if I didn't like all that, I can basically just drag this whole default toolbar right here. I believe up to that, and that'll just reset everything. So if yours does not look the same, that's one thing you can do. Now, in this dialog, we can see right here that quite clearly this search is identified as a quick find search. Now, I don't know exactly when this was added, but it was probably added maybe because of Google. I don't know. FileMaker's been around long before Google came about, and this whole notion of just having one single place to search is very appealing to users. But in normal database systems, you are searching specifically for the pieces of information that you want to find. So in this solution, I have to ask myself, how are users going to search for this solution? Now, in FileMaker, we have these modes called browse and find. These are your two predominant modes. Layout mode is where think of it as your designer or your form view. It's your canvas. It's where you design how the system looks. Most users will not be in layout mode, only you as the developer, but most users may, depending on how you choose to use FileMaker, be either in find mode or in browse mode. Predominantly, 99% of the time, you're in browse mode. You're just interacting with the data. But when we go into find mode, as we will see, FileMaker has these things called operators, and we're going to discuss FileMaker's query by form mode of searching for things. It's the primary way that you control or have full control over how you request data and get it back. And you have full control over that when you are scripting. But FileMaker also has this separate thing called Quick Find, which is the bar that we just saw. And by the way, preview mode, it's really only useful when you're going to preview something prior to output, whether it's PDF, digital, or actually printed. So this little bar up at the top, this search bar, which is Quick Find mode, by default, FileMaker says, whether you like it or not, a user is going to want to search everything. everything and anything that is in the database, users will want to search that. That is absolutely not the case, and we want to fix that. So let's take a look at how we're going to address that first. Then we'll look at the query by form, or what is FileMaker's conventional method of searching, which is also how you script. So when we go into layout mode, which I did with Command or Control L, you can't automatically see, or your database may be turned on so that you can see which fields are actually set for quick find mode. We can only see that when we go up to the View menu, and under the View menu, there is a submenu called Show. Now, off to the side, we're going to see all of the different things that FileMaker can possibly show while in layout mode, and right here is one of them, Quick Find. If this is not turned on, then you simply need to select it. Now, you more than likely won't have keyboard shortcuts. I have assigned keyboard shortcuts myself using the Macintosh operating system. You go into the Preferences panel for the system, and then under Keyboard, you're able to assign keyboard commands to menu options, and that's what I have done here. So this may not be the same on your copy of FileMaker, at least on the Macintosh. So we select this, and what we're going to see is we are going to see, of all the things on our layout, all of the areas where we have either a green magnifying glass or, as we have over here, a yellow magnifying glass. Now, what's the distinction? The difference is a green magnifying glass means that you are searching a field that is in the table that is being presented based on the layout you are on. If you don't already understand FileMaker's context, we always have something that we are looking at, a layout. That layout, in turn, is tied to one of these table occurrences. I believe in this situation, I'm either on products or I'm on quotes. So this then is an alias, more or less. I think of it as a ghost or a shortcut to an underlying table. So when we look at our tables, there is only one products table. There is only one quotes table. But in our relationship graph, we can have many of them. I can have quotes 1, quotes 2, quotes 3, quotes 4. I can have many of them. And the number of these that you have really just comes down to how you're structuring your FileMaker solution, both from the standpoint of data and from presentation. So as I remove these and we go back into our mode, as I stated before, FileMaker assumes that you want everything. Everything would be searchable. So in other words, this ID files, which is basically known as a multi-key, or let me add a field on screen that we normally would not show in our FileMaker layout, would be an ID field. Now, this is a value that is meaningless to the user, absolutely meaningless. This 1B2E for the Anderson Company versus the 7C5. All this is what's known as a canonical primary key. So this key value, which is absolutely unique to this record, is nothing that the user would ever search on, but FileMaker assumes that we would want to search on that. So how do we solve that problem? We go into layout mode. It is possible in FileMaker to make bulk changes, and we always want to do this. Now, the setting for whether or not a particular field is used on Quick Find is in the sidebar in the fourth area. These are identified as area 1, 2, 3, and 4. In the fourth area, we select this, and as we scroll down, or in this case, I'm just going to collapse field, we are going to see this option right here, include field for Quick Find. Now, we want to turn that off, but we want to turn it off not just for this one field, but we want to turn it off for all fields. But there also is the situation where FileMaker has this thing where you can put a piece of text on your layout, and if that text is referencing a field, that as well will be searchable. Hence, as I scroll over here, we can see this little indicator right here. Now, this is where we answer the question that you may have been asking, okay, but what was that you told me that one is green versus one is yellow? What's the difference? We can see that by virtue of the fact that we have our double colons here, that this is a piece of text. I can double click in here and I can add more words. This is what's known as a merge value. would say you can be a merge field. You can also merge in other things about the environment. Those are all found under the Insert menu. And as we zoom in right here, you can see that we've got this merge field. So not only am I able to put an actual field on the layout, I am also able to put a representation of that field on the layout as text, which is accessible right there as a merge field. Notice that we can also merge variables. You can also insert other symbols, and that other symbol will merge in things from FileMaker's calculation engine so that you can get like the user count, the current date, the number of records there are, whatever you have in FileMaker's environment, you can put those on the layout as text with this other symbol. But with this merge field, if any field appears in the text, then you get to turn on Quick Find on an actual text label, which is pretty interesting. So what we want to do is we want to basically select everything and turn it all off. Now we can do that with one fell swoop. We do a Command or a Control A. It selects everything on the layout, and what we're going to see is that these checkboxes still do appear. So we check this, and we literally turn off Quick Find for all fields. We want to do that because we want control. We want to be able to say what can or cannot be searched with this Google-like feature. So we go into browse mode, and if I go into this search, I know that if I search for, and let's zoom my window here, I know if I search for something that's known, let's say, for example, Anderson, I should come up with results, or normally I would, and that's why FileMaker has it turned on by default. But if I put in Anderson right now and hit the return key, I get this little dialog that says there are no fields accessible by Quick Find on this layout, which is exactly what I wanted to solve. I just turned them all off by doing a Command or Control A, selecting everything, and then unchecking that box. Now remember, as you're developing your FileMaker solution, as you add new fields, FileMaker may by default turn those on. When we go over here to this fields area in FileMaker, and let's say we drag on a new URL field, there it is again. FileMaker has added that. You just can't control it. You can't control whether a field has Quick Find on or not. FileMaker just has it on by default. So you have to remember, as one of the last stages of cleaning up your layout, you can do a Command or Control A, select everything, turn it off. Or just individually as you add things to the layout, if you do add merge fields or actual fields, remember to turn it off. So with that, my best preferred method of controlling what is searchable via that special box or not is to simply add it to the side. FileMaker has this area over to the side where anything past this line, you can think of this as no man's land, and you can think of this as everybody's land. This is what the user sees on that side, and then on the other side, we basically can put code, things, all kinds of different things. So like we had right here, with a piece of text, we can merge in multiple fields. So I am going to go up to the View menu, or the Insert. I am going to remember that Command-Option-M is my keyboard shortcut for Merge Field, and I am simply I'm going to Option drag this piece of text. I could have gone up to the text tool, selected this, and then just inserted text over here, but I already had a piece on screen. Anytime that you duplicate, do remember that you are taking any other attributes with that. That means any of the settings that are on it. For example, if there's a tooltip set onto that object, if it's a field and there's a placeholder under the field settings, remember that you are taking a duplicate of all the attributes as well, not just the actual object. But what I can do is double click into this, do a Command or Control A, select all, and I can remember that it is Option M right there. And I'm going to now literally merge in just those fields that I am interested in. Let's say I want the company to be searchable. I'm going to hit a return, and I'm going to hit that same keyboard. I want the URL to be searchable, and I'm going to hit a return, and I'm going to say I want the keywords to be searchable. Okay, that's good. I don't need any related fields at this point in time. I now, with that selected, can go over and choose the option Include Field for Quick Find. Now this is a trick where we are tricking FileMaker into thinking that these 3 fields, as opposed to 3 individual separate fields, are all searchable, and I get to control it in this one place. How hard is it for me to add a new one? It is as easy as doing this. Command-Option-M. Okay, let's say the application is now searchable. It is now searchable. And as you will see, I'm going to take the application off here really quickly. If I want to remove one, it's really super simple. I go into browse mode, and even though that is off the side of the screen on the other side there, I can search for Anderson now, and no records. Let's see if it does it. Anderson, let's do Digger, see if that comes up with it. There we go. It found Digger right there. It needed I was Anderson instead of Anderson with an S-E-N. Remember, you can also always do partial searches. I believe I had this, Anderson, which does not match anything when what I was looking for is Anderson. Remember, it is easy to get confused by your own search criteria, so if you don't get the result you're looking for, just shorten your result, and then FileMaker will find substrings within a string. So, even though I caused my own problem. But we can see right there, it is actually searching that. And if I wanted to test my URL is actually working, I will simply type in HTTPS. That then finds 6 out of 8. We can always look at our results right there. And now we can go to the next stage, and that is, what if that is not showing? What if I'm turning off FileMaker's default bar because I don't like the fact that any user can go in and click customize here, and they can add and control these toolbars, whether they are told by somebody else or they just discover it themselves. We have no control as a FileMaker developer over what the user does in terms of what they do and don't show in this bar up at the top, both Windows and Mac. So if you do want to control that, FileMaker has features that allow you to hide that bar, lock it, and not even let the user have it. So can we still take advantage of Quick Find? We can, and that is right here. So this particular field is tied to a script. Going into layout mode, we can see that I choose to use a global field for searching. It also happens to turn out, because of the double colons, I know that this is coming from a related table. And we'll talk about this in another video, but the table that I'm using is a dedicated globals table. Now, there is this approach where you can use a globals table to store multiple of your global fields, and if you don't already know, a global field, every one of these is absolutely unique on a per user basis when they're connected to FileMaker. User A doesn't see what is in user B's global fields. They don't cross over, even though the word global is confusing. It means the field itself is global to all records in the file, but it is unique to each user in the file. It's just basically a piece of memory where you can store things. So by having this search in a globals table, I am able to separate that out so that each user, they search differently. And so the solution is to simply just provide search functionality. You can see right there that as we zoom in, right there, that little icon means that I have a script trigger on this. You can see that as the tooltip comes up, it says on object save, you are going to run a script called search. We look at the script called search, which is right there. And we are simply just using FileMaker's the same functionality that's up in that search bar. Perform quick find. The criteria that you're going to supply is simply coming from that value. Now we have an exit script, and the reason that we have an exit script at the end here with a value of false is that we do not want FileMaker to pass along the last event. What is the last event, you wonder? Well, we go look at that field with it selected. We go over to this fourth area again, and we can see that the go to next object using has these 2 additional options selected, where normally this is the one that FileMaker defaults to, the tab key, but typically when a user goes into a search box, they are typing, and then they hit the return key if the results don't automatically come up as a result of typing. So I have turned on the return key and then also the enter key, because some people have an extended keyboard with the return is different from the enter, but we select both of those. we do not want the return or the enter to be passed along at the end of the script. Otherwise, what would happen? What would happen is when the user goes into this field, if I hit a return character in this field normally, it adds a return character, meaning I would type a line, it would have a return, and then I could type another line. It would be multi-line. So because of that false on that script, when I type in digger and hit return, what's happening is the perform quick find is executing. It's only quick finding based on the fields off to the side, just what I specify, and then it's giving me my result, and it's not going anywhere. It's not adding a return to this or becoming a return delimited list. Now, we can even make it such that it will stay in this field, and the cursor will be blinking here, and we could have all the text selected so that they could just be ready to type another one. That would be something that we'll talk about in another video, but if I type in ander, so forth, I can also make it such that when you select everything and you hit the delete key, you would automatically be able to have everything show up again. This is the programming part of FileMaker that's really fun. You get full control over what happens. Now, I did that manually right there on screen, but it is possible to do that. Maybe we'll do that in another video. All right, we are going to talk about FileMaker's. That's all FileMaker's quick find. Now we're going to talk about FileMaker's query by form and take a look at just some of the operators. We'll probably talk about them, we can in length at in another video at another time, but this is fundamentally how you are going to get any and all of your results to present to the user based on things that they want to see. Whether they're clicking a simple button that does something, this just loads a URL, but let's say it was a button that read, show all active customers, show all customers with open invoices, show all players for an event. Whatever the button is and what it's going to do, many times it's tied to something where you're either showing a related set of data, which is already presented in a portal, or you are going to be basically performing a find using FileMaker's operators, getting the exact results you want, and then presenting that to the user. So let's take a look. All right, so let's talk about FileMaker's query by form mode of searching for things and talk about the fundamentals. I won't be able to go into every detail and show you all of the different possible operators and how they work, but we're going to talk about how things fundamentally work in terms of finding things in FileMaker. When we go into this view find mode or Command or Control F, which is super easy, we are in the query by form mode. Now what that means is anything that's on screen that the user can see, where we've got these little magnifying glasses, that is something that is searchable, and only that one thing will be searched. As opposed to quick find, by default, FileMaker says look across everything. But as you saw, we can control what quick find actually searches. In this case, if I type in Ander right here, it's going to get Anderson and Anderson. It will literally take the substring, look only at the company field, and then find anything that includes that substring. Same with if I put in dig, it would get digger and digus and dig whatever else is in my database. Now, you are able to do what are known as and meaning as well, you are able to do or searches. Now, the distinction between them comes in the form of requests. Now, in browse mode, we know that we have, I'll go into browse mode, we have a number of records. In this current database, I have 8 records. If I am in find mode, which I've just gone into with Command or Control F, we get this same notion of a record count, but these aren't actual records. These are just multiple requests for things. So if I wanted to find Anderson or Digger, then what I would do is I would add a new request. Now, in find mode, if I do a Command or a Control in, you can see that my request count has gone from 1 to 2. I stayed within the company field and I put in dig. Now, what this is saying is in this query by form, and it's really nice to see it in list view as well, and all kinds of FileMaker solutions, they will create variations on this where, for example, you use a card window and maybe you bring up in find mode a card window where in the background everything stays in browse mode looking normal, but this card window that comes up presents like a search box, and the user can create and add multiple requests, which sometimes is a little easier for users to understand in list view as opposed to form view, because here in form view we're switching back and forth between records, and this is so close to the UI of what the user sees that they're looking at this, and sometimes FileMaker actually had a problem in the past where users would go into find mode, forget they're in find mode, and simply start to add data into find mode, which, come to find out, when you go into browse mode, loses all of the data that the user had entered, which what they thought were records. And so we actually get to this. Let's see if this happens. New. I think you get to 10, and FileMaker comes up with this right here. You are in find mode. This is a problem that FileMaker had. Users would do this, and FileMaker set this arbitrary limit of 10. You can't control it. There's no settings you can set. That if a user has hit new request while in find mode 10 times or more, we're going to show you are in find mode and appear to be entering new record data rather than find request. Now, this is an odd way, in my opinion, to solve the problem, but they did have the problem, and you could as well, because of this very fact that the query by form method, the UI presentation that the user sees regardless of find or browse mode is the exact same. And users just may not make the distinction. Now, when I go into browse mode from find mode, the requests are not executed. The only thing that executes the find is either clicking a button or hitting the return key. So I'll hit Command or Control F again now, and I'll type in my same request, and then I'll make a new request, which is an OR request, and type dig. Now, what would be an AND request? An AND is on the same record or on the same request. I shouldn't even call it a record because it's not a record, it's a request. So if I wanted to find this doesn't make sense currently, but actually we can come up with one. If I wanted to find everything that is and is tagged or identified as a kitchen supplier, or by switching to the next request, I want to find everything that is dig and porch. When I execute this by actually either clicking perform find, or if I hit the return or enter key, I actually hit one. I got one of them. It turned out that digger was, of those results, one that was both digger and porch, but Anderson was not Ander and kitchen, because I believe Anderson was a window supplier. So the great thing about find mode is you're able to go in and revise whatever your previous request was. So I can do a refind. We're going to find that under the records menu. We have this option right here of modify last find, or I think of it as refind because the command or the key sequence is Command or Control R. So I want to refind based on my previous find with the ability to modify it what I previously looked for. So Command or Control R takes us back into what we had done just previously, where I can see that on request 2, I have dig and porch, and I use the little record indicator, I go back and it was Ander and kitchen, and I know that it was not kitchen. So if I deselect kitchen here and say I want to look for Ander or dig with dig and porch on the same record. And so when I execute this one with clicking the perform find, I do find the two records. And of course, if I had deselected porch, it would find it. The whole key here is the query by form is how you construct all of your queries within FileMaker's scripting language. That's how you are going to find exactly what you want to show the user based on buttons. Now, this is the fundamentals. The operators allow you to do different things based on what you're looking for and based on the type of field that you're searching. So I'm going to hit Command or Control F, and when I am selected in this, We have to remember that FileMaker has what every search engine has, the ability to not just find specifically what you're looking for, but also the ability to exclude certain things. So if I was to create a new request, let's say I'm looking for this particular piece of information, but now I want to exclude something, meaning out of that range of information, I know that there are some things that I do not want to have included. I can create an additional request, which I did with Command or Control N. We can see that 2 requests are now there. But on this second request, I can set this from an include to an omit. And when I choose to omit a certain subset of records, what happens is the first request is going to say, I want to, let's say on the first request, I want to look for all suppliers of bathroom products. But within that, on the second request, let's say for some oddball reason, let's get that on screen right there. For some oddball reason, I wanted to omit everything of those bathroom products where the certain provider starts with the letter A. So how would I do starts with the letter A? I could put the letter A in here, but that's just going to search for anything that includes the value of letter. When we want to do specific things, it is this operators option where we're able to start to be even more specific. Do we have a starts with, less with, match, find duplicates? And sometimes this is the what you have to do is you have to learn FileMaker's operators in order to achieve the result that you want. So as I zoom back in here, what I can do is I can put an A, and then I can use this option of 0 or more characters. And so this is more or less probably a starts with. So the inverse of that, if I wanted to say it ends with, I would probably do this A ends with. So this is a way, and I know that Anderson is Windows. So let's see, in the first request I am looking for, not bathroom, let's look for Windows. We'll look for Windows, and on the second request, we will say that what we are saying is we want to exclude anything that starts with A. So what we should get as a result here, because I know in this database, Anderson is the only one that includes Windows, I should get a 0 found set when I execute this. And lo and behold, I do. I get exactly the results that I expect because what I have told FileMaker, and that's just because I happen to know how FileMaker is working with these operators, then in order to get a starts with or ends with, you put the first letter and then you use this 0 or more characters. So for another video, I would have to spend time giving you all kinds of examples. Actually, there is a really good, I believe if you search YouTube for either FileMaker search operators or there was a DevCon presentation a while back where I think the person basically had a FileMaker database that had examples of each and every one of the search operators. I just don't have that, but definitely taking a little bit of time and just reading this list, whether you pause the video right now and read what we have on screen, or you do it yourself by going into find mode and looking at these, knowing what your options are is very important in this particular situation. So what I'm going to show you as a wrap up to this video is that once you understand query by form, the fact that you can have multiple requests, you can either include or exclude items, and you can do it based on really specific details using your operators, you can take this even a step further. Once you have a found set of data, if you choose to either narrow or widen that set of data, is completely doable, and it is under the requests menu. Under the requests menu, we are going to see these two options of constrain found set and extend found set. So what this is this is a find on top of the results of an existing find. So if you've performed a find and it's giving you some results, but you now want to narrow it down, you are able to go back into find mode, and rather than telling FileMaker to perform the find, you are going to say, of the requests that I am now supplying, I want to constrain what you had previously found to a smaller set. Or optionally, I want to extend and make wider the results that you have currently provided me. So having said all of that, that leads me to what I have in the background here. Added into this, if you're a subscriber of, I'm providing the information via this series for free on YouTube. I also have some subscriber-only videos that you can find over on FileMakerMagazine.com, and I'm reserving this file and access to this file to the subscribers because there are some very powerful, big time-saving solutions that you're going to have in here. I'm talking hours and hours and hours of time saving. That's why I have a subscribers area, is so that there's a benefit to them to subscribing. This file I have added in from my tool. I have a tool where basically I just click a button, I click a thing, it goes to a folder where I have a collection of code that I have taken hours and time to write. And one of them is this little particular feature. In fact, there's an article on the magazine website that talks about automating in your UI the ability to perform these very routine finds. And so there's this function called Json find requests. And I don't know that the magazine has it titled Json find requests. I'll have to have a link on the magazine website to that other articles where you'll be able to get to it. Or I can put it on the YouTube description as well. But I have added that into this particular file. It is in the scripts. There is a script right here called Json find request. Now, the way that this works is there is a set of criteria which we're going to have. I'm going to copy that right now, and I'm not going to go through all the details of how this script works. You can get access to that if you subscribe to the magazine and go over there. But like I was saying, there are things in your UI where you simply want to find a subset of data. Now, in this database, my home database, let's say I'm doing research for putting windows into my home. And I'm on this, I could teach my users to go into find mode and say, go into find mode and just click on Windows and then execute that find, and it will find all suppliers that have that ID of Windows. Well, structurally, in this database, I'm not going to actually be using this checkbox way. I'm going to normalize this database and put the data in a much better way in terms of storing it. I have it here for you for the purpose of learning how we go from checkboxes with multiple options into what's related value lists, which will be down the road in this series. But for right now, if I wanted to, say, for example, have a button, and I'm just going to option drag this button, and I'm going to double click this, and I'm going to turn on the option to just show text, and I am going to say show similar. And instead of the action being a single step, because I drag copied the button, I'm going to say perform script, and I am going to perform the script Json find request. I am, under the parameter, going to paste what I had copied, which is actually a comment, which is the structure that I need in this database or for the request. If you have not used Json, please don't be worried. Even though this is a beginner series, this is just highly structured data. I am going to take this out, and I am going to take this out. Now, what this is doing is this is saying I want to pass to the script a find. I've got a type, I've got a request, and the field that I'm searching on is keywords. And in this particular case, I'm going to only supply one. But the criteria that I'm going to supply is the keywords right there. And I'm going to click OK. Specified table can't be found on, what is it looking for where here? I believe all of this, I need to quote this. I should have taken a different one, and I need to escape these. So if you're not familiar with FileMaker yet, what I'm doing right now is I am escaping the quotes within the JSON that I need to pass to this particular solution so that it will accept my parameter. Sorry about that if you're a brand new FileMaker user, but in essence, I am just making that so that the parameter will pass to the script properly, which we'll be taking a look at escaping and all that other stuff in this beginner series video at a later time. My button doesn't look very good. I'll just move things around here. I'm not really in design mode here. So everything is ugly. We're just getting it to work. Actually, I could have made this a little bit smaller and put this right here. So let's see. I'm going to need another window company. So let's add one. I'll add a new record. Window company. And we will need to make sure and give it the checkbox radio that it is a window company. I forgot my Y. So I should be able to, now we can see that I have 9 records showing. But as a result of this one script, from my UI, I am able to pass the criteria that I want to that script, and that script will do all of the things that a user would have to do. What would the user have to do? They would have to go into find mode with Command F. They would have to click on Windows, and then we have to execute the find, and it would find these 2 records. But when we get into this database and wanting to provide the user with some really complex functionality where our expectations of a user being able to go into find mode and create a really complex multi-request, including omits with operators, that's just not realistic. A lot of users, we can't expect them to know how to do complex queries in FileMaker. We learn them as developers, and then we put them in the UI such that with all records found, when I click on this, it just runs the search for me, which in this case, it's not currently doing. I did hook up the button, right? I did hook that up. I would have to debug and see if this is actually carrying the value in properly or if it's expecting a different value. But for the most part, I would be able to click this. Let's see what the debugger is saying about this. And we'll get into debugging later. Json, it is capturing the value. We'll take a look at the data. Bring that on screen really quickly. Json is right there, but for some reason, I would need to debug this. I'm recording this video real time and live. We'll go ahead and run this, and even though it isn't showing the results currently, you'll have to trust me that once I've got it hooked up, which I don't want to take the time to go through, debugging isn't always the most fun to look at, it will actually give me the results so that I'm ending up with a 2 out of 9 found set, correct and working. And that will be in the file that you're able to download with it correctly working in the on the article over at FileMakerMagazineWebsite.com. But I hope in this video you've gotten a good understanding of the 2 primary ways of searching. It is either the simple quick find, and then you taking control and saying what you do and don't want quick find to operate on, or it is FileMaker's more complex and more precise query by form method of searching and using the search operators to get the exact result that you want. Then beyond that, it's automating that process, making it easier for you as the developer to wire things up in your UI so that you can use just a single button that when you want complex search criteria, you just put that criteria in the button, hand it to a script, and the script just runs it for you and does all the find requests. And you can put those buttons all throughout your UI and make your solution really, really powerful. So I hope, as always, you've been able to learn more about developing in FileMaker. Until next time, I'd like to wish you much luck and happy FileMaking.
We hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial, and we'd like to say thank you for your subscription and your support. If you're not already a subscriber, head on over to www.FileMakerMagazine.com/subscribe for more information about the benefits of joining.